Liev from Oregon, he, him. Liev, you're on the line. What's on your mind?
Hey, good evening, Dave. Good evening, Matt. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Okay.
And reason I'm calling is, well, I was, listening to your intro, and you guys were just talking about kind of like, the meaning of life and pursuit of meaning. And as it happens, that's been something I've been thinking a lot about as well. And in my intro, I said I'm just sort of as I'm pursuing investigating like meaning, I'm finding theism is making more sense for me. And my background, I've been an atheist the vast majority of my life, and not as like an atheist, I'm a sinner, as in like I was someone who was not convinced that a God existed. And my background is Jewish, and both of my parents were atheists. And I say Jewish is very much more a cultural Jewish. We hardly ever went to any services, had very little contact with the rest of my Jewish family. And, I should say, I apologize if I have to hang up suddenly. I'm watching my daughter right now, so her attention is more important than yours.
That's fair.
But I found over the last few years that I've always had an interest in religion. It's just like an interesting thing to study. Mm-hmm. I've kind of swung back around to Judaism, and the more I've been looking at like the history of development of Jewish thought, I've found
Liev?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you like move the mic away from your mouth? You're kind of overdriving it, and it's popping, and so you're breaking up just a little bit.
Terribly sorry. Is this better?
Much better.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I've found that as I've been reading like writers like Maimonides, various rabbis over time, I've been looking at scripture like the Torah less as, even though Torah means the law, less as a rule book and a static document, and more as like a 3,500-year-old journal of various people through time trying to connect with what they understood to be the divine. And I, looking at it that way, I was like, okay, so this isn't like the end. This is the beginning of a journey, and it's keep going on. And as I've been reading more modern Jewish thinkers and thinking about things myself, I find that when people talk about God, I'm agreeing with an awful lot of what they're saying. And while we might disagree, at least where I am right now, while we might disagree about the definitions of what God is, we agree on an awful lot of what the end result of what we should be doing with our lives is.
What should we be doing with our lives? I have like 50 questions for you, but let's just start there.
Go for it. What we should be doing with our lives. And again, this is all like I am still on journey here, so that's why I didn't propose this. Like, I'm not here to like debate, and I don't have the best arguments, but just kind of sharing thoughts. And I'm interested in what you folks are thinking too, because you talk with lots of different people and are very immersed in the idea of thinking about on the demise. So what should we be doing with our lives? Is the main thing is thinking about what we should be doing with our lives, which is reductive. But I've been very impressed that like one of the big thrusts with Judaism is study. Think about what you're doing. Sure, look at the rabbis, and of course, oftentimes follow what the Torah says. But what the Torah means in one's current life can change and has changed with each generation. And thinking about what do these words, what do these experiences mean for me today, is different in every generation and can change in some person's circumstance. So the first commandment, I guess the 0th commandment, is think about what you're doing. And is what you're doing a benefit to yourself? Is it a benefit to the people around you? And if it's not, if your answer is like, I could be doing better, think about how you could be doing better.
Well, let me jump in. It sounds a lot like humanism, because what you're saying is, if I'm thinking about what I'm doing and how it can benefit those around me, I guess I don't see where a God fits into that. Why is a God needed for that kind of a lifestyle?
And so, yeah, stage 2 for that is, and I would say it's not needed, because like I said, I described myself as a humanist and atheist for many years. I don't think I was being a terrible person, and I would say 95% of my life is pretty similar to what I was before I started thinking of myself as a theist. The difference, that last 5%, is scale. And are there things that I can be doing? Now, I'll put it this way. Are there things that I can be doing that extend beyond just my immediate experience? And the way I've been trying to understand that, again, I sorry if my language is not precise because I'm still working on all this, but there is a larger, there's a perspective of humanity, like, through generation, genuinely, which I acknowledge as part of humanism, but also not just as part of the human experience, but as a part of how we interact with other life on Earth, how Earth is interacting with us, and a very large cosmic scale. Yes.
Yeah.
I apologize, but you're saying absolutely nothing. So what is it about your views? What is it about your views that is specifically contingent on being a theist?
Good question.
The note in your call says, in a lifetime pursuit of finding meaning, I'm finding theism is making more sense. But like Matt said, everything you've described so far is a life that looks to be devoid of a God of any kind. It's just a life of humanism and human experience lived one with another. So where does a God fit into that? Because nothing you've said so far points to a God.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So in my years of reading scripture from various religions, I always had to what I call translate. Like, it's like, okay, so this God doesn't exist. It's a fictional character. What is it this person is trying to say? And it was an awful lot of work to translate into something that made sense. And I find I'm not doing that anymore. And after I've stopped translating, it's like, okay, so, and again, this God as an actual entity, but not necessarily something personal or a active agent in the world, but something that does exist and has a perspective. It is making more sense, and I am understanding more about the lessons that are being communicated in the scripture and also from modern writers. And it's that last 5% of going from God as a fictional character to God is something that is watching and we are interacting with. That a lot of this stuff is fitting into place now that didn't used to.
Yeah, Liev, we're still getting nowhere. You said, in all of your years of reading scripture, and I don't know why anybody would want to read scripture to find meaning. There may or may not be meaning in there. It may be an interesting hobby, but it seems like you, from the way you've described this, you had in your head, I need to be reading scripture because there is meaning there. And what you talked about was, you said you used to translate it in your head as, if God doesn't exist, what is this person trying to say? But what if what that person is trying to say isn't relevant, isn't meaningful, and requires a God belief?
Great. So first, it was an interesting hobby for me. I just thought it was important to a lot of people, and it wasn't something. It was an interesting hobby. Like, you could play chess or watch football, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
And then I'm sorry, could you ask your second part again, Matt?
What if what they're saying requires a God belief? If you try and take scripture and say, what was the author trying to say if they realized there wasn't a God? What if that's preposterous and the author was saying things because they believed in a God? In that case, you're inventing your own understanding that has nothing to do with their intent.
Yes. And before, that's what I was doing, and I was aware of it. Where, like, if I went back in time and spoke to the person who, first originated the scripture, I know it's more complicated than that, but you get the idea. We probably wouldn't be agreeing on what they were saying. And I was experiencing that where, like, I just, in the end, wasn't getting what they were getting. And then I would listen to a rabbi or something, and they're like, I just don't get where you're coming from at the end of the day. But then I've gone back to that, and and again, it's fair to say that what I'm saying isn't much because I'm still working on it. But
it'd be really cool if you just answer the question.
I'm sorry.
You seem to have a flawed assumption that you can find meaning and value in this in religious writings by ignoring the religious tenets that they're ascribed to. Why on earth do you think that is true? Why is it not the case that the wisdom that you find in there is found everywhere, is not tied to anything true about the religion, and the rest of it is garbage? Why is that not the case?
Because the person who was writing at the time did have meaning, and it was true for them.
No. There's no such thing as stop. There's no such thing as true for them. The fact that they believed it is independent of whether or not it's true. If it's true, it's true. There's no such thing as, oh, that's true for me. No, that means it's not true.
Is that fair enough?
Universal truths that have been true for all time. Granted, it's like scientific truths, objective facts have always been true. It doesn't require anyone to be even thinking about them, right? We agree with that. That's factual truths. Sure.
I don't know of any other truths.
Yeah.
So just so we're not talking past each other, what would you call something that someone personally finds very meaningful, but is not necessarily the same meaning for every person?
It's not a truth. Doesn't make it true. Yeah.
Okay.
It is true. It is true that so, like, for example, I like chocolate ice cream. Maybe you like vanilla. It is true that I like chocolate, but there's no truth there of chocolate has the most meaning or anything. The sort of subjective assessment that is contingent on my personal opinion is not it's true that I think this, but it has no truth value outside of my experience.
Yeah, Liev, it sounds like you're conflating truth with meaning. Meaning is not necessarily truth, and you keep using them interchangeably almost.
Sure, that's what I was doing, and thank you for clarifying. So I'm just talking about meaning, objective meaning, and I have found that I am gaining a deeper subjective meaning, a deeper understanding of the things that happen around.
What's that mean?
Sorry? What do I mean by that?
I don't know what that means. Every time somebody says a deeper subjective meaning, a deeper meaning, I don't know what any of that means. It sounds like nonsense to me.
Mm-hmm.
A richer experience of life.
What is a richer experience of life?
That just my daily experience of living, I am gaining more joy and appreciation of it.
Sure. So basically what you're saying is what you're experiencing makes you happier.
Yes, sure.
Sure.
Okay, so how
then we don't need the woo-woo sophistry of deeper meaning and all that. You can just say this makes me happy.
Okay. You mentioned an interactive God, Liev, and what evidence do you have that there's a God anywhere helping you find this deeper meaning?
I don't, and I don't think that's the nature of God. God is not actively helping us. God is present.
And what good is he?
Functionally not very.
Okay, fair enough.
God is not. I don't believe in a God that answers prayer.
How do we know he's not?
Sorry, what?
Well, you keep describing a God, and when we ask how you know this, you don't have an answer, and yet you say, "Oh, but I think God is like this." Well, how do you? Why do you think that God is like the way you describe?
And I hate to be nitpicky here, but this is actually kind of important. Have I actually said God is anything?
No.
Well, let's pretend that you didn't, even though I heard words that seemed like that. So now, what is God? Because that's all I care about is the truth. If you're dancing around, so what is God, and how do you know?
Fair. So, Maimonides or Rambam, one of...
I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to you.
Back up a bit from your mic again, Liev. You're still popping. Back up a little bit.
Terribly sorry. Okay. It is a well-established and seriously considered way of approaching the definition of God to not describe any attributes to it in Jewish tradition.
No.
Okay.
Something without attributes is not anything. In order for it to be something, it must have an attribute. In order for you to point to it and say that is a thing, it must have some attribute. In order for you to say, I believe this thing is real, there must be some attribute. Saying I'm not going to give it any attributes is cowardly bullshit of a way of hiding the fact that you don't have a good understanding of what it is that you're professing, which is exactly what happens when people make stuff up and use a placeholder. So the God, in order for it to be a cogent concept, must have some properties. If you say that you are worshiping or believe in a God that has no properties, you are essentially claiming to have, well, anyway, go ahead.
I think, so, all right, what I think God is, is an emergent process from the dynamic interactions of all the different systems in the universe.
Oh, dear God. An emergent process?
It's pantheism.
Okay. So how does that help you? Give me something practical from all of that word salad you just gave me.
Okay.
How did that help you find meaning, as you stated in your call? Because I don't understand any of that. Pardon?
Again, it's basically pantheism, but I am that process. I am both interacted with and participate in those processes, and that makes all the actions I do have more weight than just my personal happiness. And by understanding that, I find I'm more inclined to put positive feedback back into the system. I hope that wasn't a word salad.
Well, there's just no God involved in that, Liev. I just don't see... You're describing the human experience and how we evolve and grow and learn and interact with one another, but I don't see any God involved in that because you haven't given us a definition of what that God would be and look like and interact. What's the point of calling it a God? I don't get it.
Right. So I agree with you that a God is not necessary for that approach.
Okay.
My personal subjective experiences I have been finding thinking about that God has made that process easier for me.
So I could think about a zebra, that I think zebras are cute and interesting, and who else, what other animal has these black and white stripes? And I could just think about zebras all the time and say that is improving my quality of life. That'd be the same thing of what you're telling us you do now, but you're calling it God.
I would say exactly right. And if zebras had a millennia of tradition of people expanding upon that idea, it would be exactly the same.
It doesn't matter what a millennia of people think about a particular God. That's irrelevant. It doesn't make it true.
It doesn't change the facts, but so how about this? It doesn't change how long people have studied evolution, right? It's always been there. Us understanding evolution doesn't change anything about how the process works, but it's deepened our understanding and enabled us to have a better view of the world. I presume you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I guess we're kind of
same thing. There's just more evidence for evolution than God.
Well, no, the difference is that evolution is a real thing that we can identify, test, describe, and has fucking properties. It's not pantheism. Sure. You're saying you went through all of this. You're desperately looking for meaning, and so you go read scriptures, and you find some things of value in there, but clearly they couldn't have been talking about an actual God. And then you find out, well, now I got to look at it as if I'm an actual God. So now I'm going to go ahead and imagine a pantheistic God because, as you said, thinking about that God has made the process easier. But that has nothing to do with whether or not that God is real. And a pantheistic God is no God at all. It is simply looking at the universe and saying, you are God. That's meaningless. It doesn't fall into gods of classical theism. It isn't an agent. It has no thoughts. It has no desires. It has no goals. It doesn't care about you. It cannot inject any meaning into anything. So why are you finding theism? By the way, your call said that you're a theist and you're finding theism makes more sense, but you're talking about pantheism where there's nothing there.
So, again, definitions again. I say I'm a theist because when people talk about God, I find myself agreeing with them. It is not, I agree with basically everything you just said, though, Matt.
So basically you just agree with everybody. This is what happens. Stop. This is what happens when you buy into bullshit. When you talk to theists, you find yourselves agreeing with them. When you talk to atheists, you find yourselves agreeing with them. I want to agree with the actual fucking truth. Do you care about whether or not your beliefs are true?
Yes.
I don't believe in.
Okay. Your definition of God, when you say God, Matt, we say different things, unfortunately. Maybe if I said pantheism, that'd be clear. When you talk about God, I don't believe in that God.
You don't believe in any God. Pantheism, you don't God. I also believe in theism.
Right. Yeah, sure.
You're not a theist. Is there an agent God, a thinking being that you believe exists?
No.
Okay. Then you're not a theist.
You're not a theist.
I get it. Hang on. Do you want to point to pantheism? What value does pantheistic belief add to reality?
None. I'm not.
Thank you.
Does any belief add to reality?
I'm done.
Okay.
We've gone in enough circles here. I just would encourage you. I mean, Liev, you're describing a life that doesn't need a God, and yet you seem to be clinging to the need for a God, and we just don't understand why you're doing that, because you have no clear definition of what this God is that you think you need. So I would encourage you.
What's worse?
It makes me.
What's worse is that you just set up and demonstrated contradictory thinking, because you said you cared about what was true and that you're desperate to find meaning and that you're finding theism makes more sense. And then when addressed, you point out that theism that you believe in, pantheism, does not add any meaning to the universe, which means that you are not believing something for meaning. You're believing something for the other reason that you stated, because it makes you feel good and nothing more.
I understand if you went in the call. There's just one thing you just said there, Matt. Are there ideas that add to the universe?
I'm not talking about ideas. I'm talking about meaning. Okay. I'm talking about whether or not there's a God.
Which is subjective. Would we establish before? Meaning?
No.
It's not. Okay. We might be talking. We've been talking past each other the whole conversation. I apologize. I've been trying to.
We haven't been talking past each other. You have untenable positions that are contradictory to the things that you've tried to say. Period. You say you care about meaning and that theism brings meaning. And then when we get drilled down to what theism you're talking about, you describe a theism and admit that it does not add any meaning. And then you try to suggest that it can't add any meaning. So now you have put yourself in a position where the very thing that was important, that you were arguing for, you have now argued against by your own admission as soon as we got down to brass tacks.
I have misunderstood what we went by meaning. If you're done with the call, that's fine. Could I ask for an example of meaning that adds to the universe?
I think we've kind of...
I don't know what you're talking about.
Gone around this enough. We've got some other calls we need to get to. We've kind of spent enough time on this because we're kind of going in circles here. Maybe call back another time, one of our shows, think through some of these ideas and maybe get a little more solid on what you think you're talking about here, because it's been a little confusing, honestly. Okay. All right, we'll let you go though.
I will think about meaning that adds to the universe.
Okay.
Stop. The ridiculous stuff that you decide to latch onto in order to avoid actually thinking while pretending that you're thinking is embarrassingly bad. Oh, let me think about meaning that adds to the universe. What the fuck else is meaning? What value are you talking about?
Well, you asked me something. What does my belief or theism add to the universe?
No, that's not what I said. I said, what could a pantheistic God, which it's not even a God, what does that add to the universe?
And I said nothing, because does any idea add to the universe? Oh my God, Liev.
Okay. What
fucking difference does it make if there's another idea that adds something to the universe or not? Here's the thing you're not understanding. When I got you to the point where you admitted that the very thing you were pointing to that you said brought meaning could not bring meaning, you then went to, does anything bring meaning? Which means you're a liar and you're lying to yourself, because you are claiming shut up. You are claiming that your pantheism adds meaning, and then when we drill down to what meaning does it add, you say none, and then you say, can anything add meaning? You are a waste of conversation, Liev.
You're going in circles. I don't think you really know what you believe, and I think it's become pretty clear.
I'm sorry that you're confused, genuinely, but we just spent 27 minutes dancing around your parade of, I'm desperate to find meaning somewhere, let me find it in pantheism, even though I'll admit it can't come from pantheism, and maybe there's no meaning anywhere. Go put the bong down, put down the religious texts. Don't ever listen to people like Jordan Peterson, because you will gullibly fall for whatever they're engaged in. Stop. Just enjoy your life and
make your own meaning. Yeah, live your life, make your own meaning. You don't need to find it in some religious text or some weird idea of what you think God might be. That's my advice to you. But we're going to let you go. It's been long enough. Okay. Thanks for the call, Liev. Goodbye.
I called for a critical explanation of my theory.
Nope. We're done. I had quite enough of that. What'd you learn there, Matt? Anything?
No.
I
learned some things about Liev, and it's fine. And I learned that, once again,
he doesn't know what he believes.
People who are flailing around, desperate to find meaning, will find it. Desperate to find purpose, will find it, even in places where they admit there can be no meaning or purpose. And then when pushed down to the point where they're about to be forced to address their own dishonesty, they will question the very nature of reality itself before they acknowledge that they're full of shit.
Yeah, that really got confusing.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jimmy Snow. I'm the executive producer of The Line, and at night I sneak into Matt Dillahunty's house and I trade his cereals for other cereals. He comes out and he's like, wait, these are cereals I buy, but I swear I had different cereals. Anyway, would you like to support this channel or any specific show? You can do so over on Patreon or in channel memberships. There are special tiers for special shows or for the channel at large, and it helps us expand programming as well as hopefully very soon launch it in podcast form. Now, also, if you'd like to support, you can like, you can subscribe, you can leave a comment or a super thanks, which is a special highlighted comment that you pay for. Those are fun. And, screw the algorithm, go check out something over here, I suppose. Boy, I hope I can still put those icons there, because if I can't, this is going to look really stupid. I'm going to go buy some Cocoa Puffs and switch out Matt's mini wheats now.